Am I the a-hole for abandoning my daughter on vacation? My wife and I have always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious vacation. Just the two of us, reliving the romance of our early years. We had it all planned out for years now and we're excited beyond words. Enter our adult daughter Jane. Jane and her husband got wind of our plans and promptly invited themselves and their 2 children along. I originally put my foot down and told them this trip was just for us, which upset her some. But my wife has a hard time saying no to Jane, as she is the youngest of our children and our only daughter, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings, so she reluctantly agreed to let them join. I wasn't thrilled about it at the time, but I wanted to make my family happy, and I knew my wife was also okay with the idea of a family trip even if she was heartbroken we wouldn't get our romantic trip. We went along with it. The place we were originally going was not child-friendly, so we changed course and decided on an all-inclusive family-friendly resort. We paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane tickets. Jane and her husband only had to pay for their own airfare. Here's where things get complicated. As the vacation got closer, I started having a change of heart. I realized that our anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I wanted to honor it in a way that was true to our original plans. My wife and I might not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something we always wanted to do. So, without consulting anyone, I switched our tickets last minute to go to the romantic destination that my wife and I had originally planned for. I did not tell Jane or her husband. I didn't even tell my wife until the day before our flight left, which was a day before Jane's flight left for their vacation. It wasn't an easy decision and I feel guilty about it. But I wanted our 40th anniversary to be the special, intimate celebration we had always hoped for. We called Jane after we landed to tell her and she was extremely upset to say the least. She seemed of the idea that we were going to look after our grandkids so she and her husband could have alone time, and now that I abandoned her they would have to do it all themselves. I hung up on them when my son-in-law started shouting and my wife and I enjoyed the rest of our trip. They came back the same day we did but have not answered any of our texts and Jane seems to be ignoring me. My wife told me she vastly preferred our trip to the family trip we would have taken, but she still doesn't like how Jane is mad at us and wants me to apologize. I'm not sure I want to after learning Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I feel like I should just to keep the peace. Am I the a-hole for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves? I'm a university professor and had an intimate relationship with a student in my class. I tried to morally justify the relationship because she was an older, non-traditional student, we were both in our 30s, and because she indicated an attraction to me first. After several flirtatious texts and spicy charged phone calls, she invited me to her home, and I accepted. The intimate relationship was brief, and she was upset when I decided to end things. After the end of the semester, she reported our relationship to the university. An university HR rep called me in for a meeting, and I admitted to the relationship. While no harassment, abuse, or coercion was ever reported, this was not a Title IX violation. I was told that a consensual relationship with a student in my class was still a violation of university policy. I knew of this policy and knew what I was doing was wrong, but I was too weak and undisciplined to resist the allure of the relationship. The HR rep advised me to resign, as not doing so would almost certainly trigger a large-scale investigation which would more than likely end with my termination. I will likely be resigning in the coming days. Several higher-ups at the university, including people I report to directly, have already been notified of the situation and are probably awaiting my resignation. I know what I did was unprofessional, immoral, and wrong. I have never been so ashamed and disgusted with myself, and I have no idea how I'll confront my colleagues and superiors on the way out, let alone all the students who will reach out asking about what happened to me. I've also been reclusive because I can't bear to face family and friends. I did this all to myself with my terrible choices. I'm now facing the task of rebuilding my life and trying to find some hope for the future despite feeling an unending amalgam of self-loathing, guilt, and shame.
Husband had a girlfriend for 4+ months and hid her from me. I am currently F23 and I met my husband M23 a while ago. I thought everything was perfect. Now for the past 4 months and especially yesterday it has not been. He has hated me for apparently 2 years. We both did stupid things and as kids we both did poor communication. Luckily I have a hard time bearing children so we don't have kids. But I quit college, my career and even left my family for this man. Now 5 years later, yes we got together young. Very dumb decision to begin with, and it feels like we are no longer compatible. I now have to worry about having a to-go bag packed and my cat carrier ready for my cat. Because I have a terrible feeling with how everything has been going on. He hated me for 2 years and never told me. Not until today. He had a friend from work, we will call her Jay. I never even knew Jay existed until yesterday. He hid her from me. He even named his new truck he got after her. For a year he has slowly drifted away. Always coming home mad. Always upset. Never wanting to talk. Never told me about any of these feelings until tonight. Before he went to work. Now I feel like it's too late. I feel like all of the damage has been done and it's too late to even repair it. I wanted this marriage to work out so bad, but I never knew why he was mad at me. Never knew why he was always angry. Not until today. Tonight I was sitting home alone and felt sick and shaky and began to see why everyone was screaming at me to leave. After 5 years of an unhappy relationship and feeling like someone always hated me, I am going home. I'm having my mom pick me up, AMD. I finally going home to family. I am scared because this man never let me work. Never let me really leave the house. Never let me drive or anything, so I don't have a license. I don't even have a valid ID. I don't have health care. I don't know what to do for a job. I'm scared for the future, and right now I just need a job ASAP. He went from this nice person to this person who was mad, distant man, angry, and never wanting to talk. Never wanting to work things out. To a person who used to hate vaping/smoking to now a person addicted to nicotine. To a guy that went behind my back with another girl and caught feelings. He moved on a long time ago. Now it's my turn. Am I the a-hole for ignoring my dad after discovering he hit another family? I, female 17, recently found out that my dad, male 50, had been hiding another family for years. My mom, female 50, wanted me to forgive him, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. To make things even more complicated, my boyfriend is friends with a girl who might be my half-sister, which is how I discovered the truth. So, here's the deal. My family has already been a bit problematic. I knew my dad was a cheater. I have a whole list of things has done, but a few months ago when my boyfriend casually mentioned his friend, let's call her Mac. He told me to add her on Snapchat. I was confused and did. She told me I might be her half-sister. She even showed me her birth certificate. I confronted my dad about it, and that's when everything came crashing down. He admitted that he had been hiding another family for years and that Mac was his daughter from that relationship. I felt like my world was falling apart. My mom knew about this secret for years and had decided to keep it from me and my brother, male 20. The worst part is, this affair must have happened as my brother was about 2. Mac is only a few months older than me. My mom wanted me to forgive my dad and try to accept this other family into our lives. She says that my dad made a mistake and we should all move forward as a family. But I can't shake the feeling of betrayal and hurt. I feel like my trust in my dad has been shattered, and I can't just pretend like everything is okay. So, Ida for ignoring my dad and not being able to forgive him?
Am I the a-hole pretending another girl was my girlfriend? I, male 25, was out with my girlfriend, female 25, and some other friends. We were drinking and having a good time. I went outside alone for some fresh air. I was standing in front of the bar, kind of a short walk away. This frantic-looking woman is walking at normal pace and there is a guy a couple of feet behind her. She walks to me and says, "Hey, baby, I'm glad you're waiting where you said you would." I was confused at first, but I quickly understood the situation. This guy was weird, and on the way up he was muttering weird things like, "Just give me your number, you're so pretty, I just want to talk to you," etc. When I told someone else this story, I was asked why I didn't react when I saw her walking and heard that. And the answer is it all happened very fast and I had been drinking. Once I put it together, I said, "Hey, honey, been waiting for you." And she put her arm around me and it took longer than I would have liked for the guy to leave. I was being gentle, saying, "All right, goodbye buddy, and we've got to get back home." Eventually the guy left, but not because she wanted him to leave, because I kept insisting. Nothing bad happened at all. My girlfriend had been watching from the window and must have only caught the end part of it and saw the other girl with her arm around me. My girlfriend is not the type to cause a public scene. She'll wait until a private time to air her grievances. The girl had no money for an Uber and was planning on walking home but felt too nervous. So I arranged for an Uber to pick her up and waited outside with her until the car came. Jumping ahead to when I was home with my girlfriend. She asked me what was that all about? And wanted to know why her arm was around me and why I stayed after the creep left. She put together that the guy was being weird, but she said I shouldn't have let her put her arm around me. Even though after the guy left she removed it. None of my explanations were working, so I just turned it to her and said, "What would you have wanted me to do? And if you were here, what would you have wanted the guy to do?" She just couldn't answer and said to stop flipping it.
My husband has been cheating on me with a catfish. I have been with my husband since 1995. Or, was with him since 1995. Going on 29 years. For a week I kept getting this sick feeling and something was telling me to check his phone. I don't do that, so I ignored it, and that urge at whatever it was kept getting stronger, and so I finally did. It physically made me sick. I've never felt so worthless, disposable, unloved in my life. I really think I would feel better if he'd actually been meeting someone and having an old-fashioned, cheap affair. He's been being catfished for about the last month. It took 3 seconds and a reverse image search to find 14 more profiles on every platform, including some online sites. The sweet, caring and loving messages me sent her, that's what I wanted more than anything. I've been trying so damn hard to be more laid back. I'm a type A with an anxiety disorder, to be more supportive, less critical and more patient. I even told him, I know I can be short and pushy sometimes, but I'm making a conscious effort to be less stressed and cause less stress. He accepted my apology. I've been doing as I promised. But now I don't know why. What was the point? He knows my trauma came from not so much the beatings as a kid but the mind games my father would play while kicking my ass. One of his favorites was "Nobody loves you, they never have, never will, you'll grow up one day and even your husband will figure out he could have done better." I don't like going into detail about everything from back then, but that I explained clearly and told him I couldn't handle being made to feel that my father had been right. I told him, if you want to step out, man up and tell me what's going on. I could handle that. It would hurt, but it would be better than being blindsided with the realization that my father had been right. He told me he wouldn't do that if he even thought about it, he'd leave me first. He didn't do that. My love language has always been small trinkets. I'm happy with a card. Just a little something that says, "I was thinking about you when I saw this." That tiny little thing once or twice a month and I'd be over the moon. It's been a few months now since I got one, but I saw where he's transferred the catfish $545 since July 26th. She got the sweetest messages just to reply, "Okay, love you," so he sent more money. I would have killed to be talked to that way, and he keeps piling it on with her and getting nothing back. He's convinced he's going to leave our life in the southeast US to go live with her in the upper northeast. He's never met her. Or him, whatever. I was speechless. In 45 years, I had never been speechless until earlier tonight. I don't like the feeling. We'll see who the favorite is when you end up in a nursing home. My, female 23, parents have recently bought a car for my, male 28, brother, and not for me. This was the last straw. I have been working since I was 15. My sister, female 20, and brother have not worked at all most years. They cite mental health issues as the reason. Although it's a factor, I believe that they also use it as a get-out-of-jail card to avoid responsibility, and my parents are enabling it. I paid for my post-secondary education by myself and with scholarships. When I lost my scholarship, my parents contributed $2,000, which I'm grateful for. My brother took a $60,000 student loan, and also maxed out credit cards. Because he doesn't work, my parents are paying his minimum payments and for his medication. My sister dropped out of high school and doesn't have a job, so my parents still buy her pretty much anything she needs. I've been traveling about once a year to reward myself, paid by me. My parents brought my sister on a vacation last year. About 7 years ago, my parents sent my brother to Europe for 3 months. Both times, it was for their mental health. When I started uni, I needed a laptop. I paid $1,000 and my dad agreed to cover the rest, $400. My brother wanted a powerful computer to build an app, so my dad bought him a $6,000 desktop last year. I currently bus 1 hour each way to go to work. I was working about 30 hours/week while being a full-time university student. My brother got his first full-time job this month, and because his shift will finish past the last bus, they decided to buy him a car. I expressed my frustration to my parents, and they told me that they were not buying my brother the car, they were fronting him the money, but he would have to pay it back. Well, my parents have since changed their mind and will be buying him a brand new $35,000 car because it'll give him the chance to save up like others have, me. They said that it will be the family car with a focus on my brother. But he will be the one using it every day. My dad loves to throw around the word equity to explain why he helps my siblings in ways that they don't with me. He said that they never prohibited me from getting a car with my own money. The flagrant favoritism is taking a toll on me. I feel like I lost more than gained by being the responsible child. I'm not sure where to take it from here. Am I the a-hole for interrupting my parents and kicking them out of my house after they ignored what I said to them? I, female 40, have been married to Andrew, male 42, for the last 10 years, and we have 2 children together, Rosie, female 3, and Theo, male 1. I came into our marriage with 2 kids. Noah, male 15, and Eliza, female 13. My ex and I broke up when I was pregnant with Eliza. I met Andrew a little over a year later, and we dated for several months before he met the kids. My ex did not like the fact that I had moved on. I was upfront with Andrew about how things were with my ex and that he might not like us dating before we reached the stage where my ex found out. He said it didn't matter and he really liked me and we'd make it work. My ex started the alienation early. Despite my best efforts, the kids believed and still believe what my ex has told them. We always split custody 50-50. It was difficult when the kids were smaller. They were always dismissing Andrew and telling him he wasn't their dad. They would tell us what their dad said about him and would say their dad wouldn't lie when I would correct it. They believed I didn't see it because I loved Andrew. It was things like Andrew made them breakfast so they'd love him more than their dad, or that he showed up to things for them because he wanted to make their dad angry, or that he wanted to steal us away from him. We were in and out of court. We had individual and family therapy going for us and the kids. The ultimate goal was for the kids not to be used as pawns and for a more civil home life. It was also to give me the tools to do the right thing when my kids were being rude or disrespectful toward Andrew. My ex never lost any custody over the things he was saying. He was told to stop. But saying that time after time and doing nothing else changed nothing. A few years ago, we reached a point of civility. Noah and Eliza do not love or respect Andrew really. But they will be civil and respectful in the home. But Andrew is not called their dad or parent, they are not called his kids, and that is something that would immediately end the civility. My parents think Andrew is amazing mostly. They have made comments in the past about Andrew being a better father figure, etc. Recently they were unhappy though by the little time Andrew spends with the older kids, and they said he can't ignore two of his kids and he's not just a father of two. I explained to them why we don't use that language, which they knew, but I was clear, I was concise, and I wanted them to know it had to be that way, otherwise they hate him and take it out on him because of what my ex said. My parents told me they understood. But the next time we saw them they started to use that language and I interrupted them before they could make things worse, because the kids were already mad hearing it. I told my parents to leave our home because they had not respected what I asked of them. They said I was rude and that I had no right to treat them this way. Am I the a-hole? I'm sick of my husband watching anime constantly. I, F25, am sick of my husband, M25, constantly watching anime. One of his best friends got him into it a while ago. I've never been into it but gave it a chance to see what it is. It's super annoying because it's literally all he does. We both work remotely. When he wakes up in the morning, it's anime. When he's working, he's got anime in the background. When he's done with work, you guessed it, more anime. I've tried talking to him about it, but then he snaps at me saying he's just trying to relax and it's not a crime to want to relax. But from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night, that's all he does. That and drinks and smokes weed. Again, every single day. Doesn't drink or anything during work, just usually in the evenings. That doesn't bother me so much. To add to all of this, he has noise-canceling headphones that he throws on to be completely isolated. I'll talk with him while he's watching his show, doesn't get upset or anything, but it just feels like I'm dealing with a complete child who wants to do nothing but glue themselves to the couch and watch this stuff. We've been together for 9 years, married for 2, anime watching started about a year ago, but I've seriously considered just leaving over this. Like I said, it doesn't feel like I have a husband, and whenever I bring it up it's someone my attacking him because he's trying to relax. He can't even have the decency to fill up my dog's water at the crack of dawn when he wakes up because he's too focused on his anime. Rant over, but I'd really like some advice. I just find it super weird and odd. I personally hate anime, but I'd also feel this way if it were anything else TV show/movie-wise. Especially because he complains about how much he hates his job but will never apply for other jobs because... well, you get the idea. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my cousin to my wedding after she threw a fit about not getting A+1? I'm getting married in 6 weeks and it is important to me that my grandmother feels special and loved on my wedding day, as we have always been extremely close and she struggles with inclusion at times. We invited 300 people to our wedding as I have a huge family. So although that is a large number of guests, I still needed to choose very carefully who to invite/not. My grandma is particularly close with one of her sisters whom she lives with. I know my great-aunt but not her children very well and haven't seen them in a few years. But, since they are my grandma's closest people, I felt it was important to include my great-aunt and her 5 children. 2 of her kids are married, so I invited those 4 as couples. 3 of her children are divorced and have been single for years. These 3 did not get A+1, which their invite clearly states. Turns out, my oldest cousin, 40 years/O, asked my grandma if she could bring her boyfriend of 2 months to the wedding in place of her brother who wouldn't be attending. My grandma thought that would be fine and brought it up to me on a recent phone call. I thought of it as a bit rude to ask, but I get shooting your shot just to see. I explained to my grandma that my fiancé has not only not met my cousin in the 7 years we've been together, let alone her new boyfriend. The wedding is expensive and I didn't feel comfortable paying for a stranger to attend and figured my cousin would understand. Turns out my cousin freaked out at my grandma and was sobbing over how rude it was that I won't let her boyfriend attend as her +1. She's recently divorced and it's the first time she's felt happy in years. So my grandma calls my mom to ask if cousin can bring him as she hates to make people cry. Without knowing I had already given a firm no, my mom says, sure, why not? My grandma then calls me and starts off the phone call with, please don't be mad at me but... and explains the situation. My grandma always tries to please everyone and she struggles with boundaries. I'm used to this. I explained I wasn't mad at her but annoyed. I asked why my 40-year-old cousin who I barely know would throw a tantrum over not having A+1 to my wedding, somebody she hardly knows. Grandma tried to explain that it's the first family function she gets to bring him to. But Thanksgiving and Christmas are right around the corner, so that's silly. Ultimately, I tell Grandma that I already made a decision and cousin doesn't have a plus one. But now I don't even want my cousin to attend, as this seems like very rude and childish behavior. I have since removed her name from the online RSVP that she hadn't yet responded to. I know this will cause problems and drama for my sweet grandma, which is what I was trying to avoid by inviting my great aunt and her kids in the first place.
Am I the a-hole for taking my parents' assignment too literally and being too honest? My parents called for a family meeting last Sunday and said they were realizing that we didn't have the happy little tight-knit family they had expected to have. They expressed that we had all been closer when we were little kids. For context, it's me, male 16, my brother James, male 14, and my other brother Easton, male 12. But now it felt like we never spent time as brothers, especially me and James, and that sharing a room they would have expected more from us. My parents said they wanted us to all be totally open and honest about how we felt and to express if we had any issues with the family to get out of the way. They said they weren't going to take a turn until after the three of us spoke first. And we couldn't leave until we opened up and said everything. I told them I felt like they had somewhat unrealistic goals, that they ignored some stuff that had been mentioned to them in the past that would have made the lack of closeness less of a surprise, and that it was weird for them to pretend they had no idea of anything going on. I admitted that I hate sharing a room with James. That personality-wise, he and I clash, and that he relies too much on being the younger brother and getting his own way, which annoys me. I said I had told them this before. James will set up these sleepover nights for him and me on the floor, and he'll expect me to play football outside with him until it's close to midnight and then go in and watch movies that bore me to tears and sleep in our sleeping bags instead of our beds. I said he started insisting we do things he enjoys when we were like 8 and 10, and ever since that point hanging out with him has not been fun for me. It has not made me feel closer to him. I admitted that I would rather share with Easton. I also said I had brought this stuff to my parents' attention before. And even complained when he was messing up my side of the room and left me to clean up, which my parents expected me to do instead of him. I also mentioned that I hate hanging out with his friends who I have nothing in common with. I told my parents they overlooked James being mean to Easton. That it might be due to jealousy and resentment that I'm closer to Easton, or it might be due to Easton being the youngest. But they would never let me say to James what James can say to Easton. I also said they treat us like we're little kids. They will tell us to go hang with much younger kids and do their activities at family houses, and they'll tell us no video games until we play outside. And that even after 16 years of knowing me, they still can't accept that I don't like sports and it's not my idea of fun to kick a ball or run around, and it never has been. James was upset about the stuff I said about him. Especially about not wanting to hang out with him and his friends. My parents were furious with me and said I had no right to say all that. I said I was doing what they asked, and they said that wasn't what they asked for. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for telling my parents it's their responsibility to look after my brother? I, F26, have a brother, M34, who is schizophrenic. When he's on his medication, he functions normally. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed in his 20s and thinks nothing is wrong with him, so he doesn't take his medication. I have another brother who passed away a few years ago. During that time my family asked me to move back home because they wanted me to be there. I was already moving due to COVID, so I said I would because it would give me a chance to save for a house and finish college. After I moved in, my family pushed my brother's care solely onto me. I had to drop out of college because I was afraid my professor and other students would hear my brother having an episode. Online classes due to COVID. I've lost jobs because my brother would keep me up all night for days straight, and I couldn't function properly or wake up in time for work. The only thing I'm able to do is call the cops/ambulance when it gets really bad so police/paramedics can admit him to a psychiatric hospital. In the 3 years I've lived here, I have called and handled him every time with no help from my family. My brother is an adult, so if he refuses help they won't take him. I'm stuck having to deal with by myself. I've had times where I left my room to find my brother having a seizure on the floor and not breathing to him, destroying things and threatening me. On top of this, my family constantly asks me for money and to buy stuff for the house. I've paid over $10,000 this year just helping with bills. It's gotten to the point where I am incredibly burnt out and want to leave. I love my brother and family, but it's gotten to be too much and I can't progress or move forward. I've started to grow resentment towards my parents because they won't do anything. They're both trying to convince me to take over power of attorney because they're too old. My mother has helped out with bills but hasn't done much to help my brother. My father hasn't done anything at all. Would I be the asshole if I told my parents it's their responsibility to take care of my brother and not mine? I don't want to cause trouble, but I feel like I will never have a life if this continues. Am I the a-hole for letting my friend struggle with her newborn baby? I, female, 31, have a friend, 32, let's call her Laura. We've been friends since elementary school, but our relationship had a few rough patches. We're close, but she can be a little self-centered and callous. I know it's rooted in childhood trauma and it's not intentional. She suffers the most from constantly driving people away, but sometimes it's still hard to stay by her side. Laura had a one-night stand and got pregnant. I told her it would be irresponsible to be a single mom when she can barely support herself, but she's decided to keep it anyway, so now she has a 2-month-old daughter, Mia. She had to quit her job halfway through the pregnancy, because it was harder than expected, and obviously can't go back in the near future. She's also depleted her savings and now her only income is child care benefit and monthly allowance from her parents until she can get a job, but it's not enough to cover her expenses. Last week she came up with the idea that they could move into my guest room. She thinks it'd be perfect, because I own the apartment so there's no rent, we can split bills and groceries, I can watch the baby when Laura's tired and she can help out with chores while I'm working. I said no, and couldn't even explain why, because she immediately started screaming about how I'm a selfish, heartless how can I be so cruel and cold, and that I don't understand what she's going through. I tried to tell her to move back home because I know Laura's mom already offered it, but she called me an again, because as a mother she can't live with her parents. Even though she can be a bit entitled, it's never been this bad, so her behavior came as a surprise. I gave her a few days to calm down, then I called to explain that while I love them both, I can't take them in. I've already helped Laura buy newborn essentials, and I told her I can help cleaning or cooking, so she can have some rest, but I can't do anything more. I've recently been diagnosed with panic disorder, I'm at the end of my rope and I'm clearly not in the mental or emotional state to basically adopt a family. She started crying and said that she's disappointed in me, because I have no idea what it means to be a mother, and I don't even try to understand her situation. Then she told me she's not sure anymore if they even need me in their life. I feel guilty and terrible for not being able to do more for them, especially for Mia who doesn't deserve to grow up like this, and I know Laura needs help because being a single mother is terrifying, but I can't do more. I can't do more. She says a real friend wouldn't put herself first, but if I don't put myself first now, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to recover from this disorder.